the graveyard is unchanged. There
Wow.
is, however, a team that's going to be on graveyard watch this coming week, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs. Um,
Naturally.
if the if the Kansas City Chiefs were to lose to the Tennessee Titans, their season is over, and they will officially be off the pyramid at that point. Which that leads us to the teams left off, and the aforementioned Kansas City Chiefs sit there as the only team left off the pyramid this week, with their performance both offensively and even defensively, giving up a touchdown at the end of the half to Justin Herbert in the manner they did, kind of inexcusable in a must-win playoff game. And then with losing Mahomes, like Jack said, you lose probably 3 to 4 points, if not more, worth of quarterback play. Maybe 7 or 6 points, some might even say. Um, they were roughly like 12 and a half, 13-point favorites against the Tennessee Titans before the Mahomes injury. Would you guys like to guess the spread for the Gardner Minshew Chiefs in Nashville
I'm gonna
against the Tennessee Titans?
I'm gonna go Chiefs. How much was it? You said
It was 12 and a half, 13 and a half, depending on the book.
I'll say 7.5.
I was gonna say 5.5.
It's 3.5,
Wow.
guys. It's
See,
3.5.
I wanted to say that, but also I just didn't think there was any way that Patrick Mahomes was worth 10 points.
I think it's more than
And
just
there-
Patrick Mahomes being worth 10 points. It's that plus
The
you're eliminated
season's
from the
over.
playoffs,
I guess.
and also not just Patrick Mahomes, but like the vibe hit of losing Patrick Mahomes. Like
I don't know how Vegas calculates vibe hit.
I think they factor everything in because it all matters, and they're always on top of things. But like, you
The
think,
vibes are worth 1.5.
how is Travis Kelce going to get up and get ready to play without his partner in crime, Patrick Mahomes, right
True.
there next to him in the warm-ups? Like, it's over.
True.
Well, he'll have a place to stay at least. 'Cause
True.
Swift does have a place in Nashville. The Chiefs have bigger fish to fry right now, though. There's a ton of concern in the Swiftie fan base of whether or not Mahomes will be in crutches for the wedding, and that is right now their highest priority is making sure Mahomes is not in crutches come the wedding, because that would not be good for the Taylor Swift photos.
Not at all.
I know that they're really up in arms about that. Um, but I'm not one to predict, but I would personally argue that I don't think he's going to be in crutches, and I don't expect Swifties to know much about ACL injuries and stuff like
I mean, they've
that.
only followed the NFL
But-
for like a year and a half.
But yeah, and the wedding is June 13th. Like that's in 6 months. He's not going to be in crutches in 6 months. He'll be
For sure.
training for the season upcoming. So I don't know why they were so concerned, but there were a lot of them that were concerned about this injury just for Taylor and her photos, of course, not Mahomes himself. Sorry, Mahomes. The Swifties have quickly turned on you. But that's enough Chiefs. Let's move to the teams that are actually good enough to be on the pyramid. And we will start with Tier 6. And you will see a team has rejoined the tiers, or the pyramid, I should say. That's the Indianapolis Colts. With the way that they performed this week against Seattle, I think Philip Rivers raised their ceiling, a lot higher than I had them last week. They were a huge success this past weekend too, for the pyramid, and certainly for the totem pole. Jack thought the spread it was a lot closer, 6 points closer than it actually was, and he was very right on that. Pyramid was also right. We were only 1 point closer, but we still get just as much credit as Jack and his totem pole do. I think Indy's earned that right to be back on the pyramid
I agree.
for the time being, and I think they will have a fight on their hands on Monday night, and I'm really curious to see how that goes. Would you guys like to guess the spread on that game? 49ers in Indianapolis.
Go ahead.
49ers minus 1.5.
I would say 49ers minus 4.5.
I'm really good at leading all astray. San Francisco -6
Yep.
is the spread this weekend. I'll go ahead and tell you right now. The pyramid does not agree, and the totem pole does not agree either. We're going to be all over Indianapolis. In fact, we get to do the funny one of the pyramid actually thinks the wrong team is favored. We would favor Indianapolis by 0.5 point this Monday night. So go ahead and get on that early on. That's a spoiler alert for Thursday's show
Sure.
as well. Continuing though with the rest of the pyramid, these three teams stay the same, and they've been here for tier 6 for a while. Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, and Carolina. Obviously, big game this week with Tampa Bay and Carolina in Carolina. I don't expect that to really change where these teams are located on the pyramid, unless we just see a drastic outcome, like Carolina gets blown out, the more likely of the two. Then maybe they leave the pyramid once again. But I don't expect much to change between those two teams this week. I really like where they are both at. Moving on to Tier 5, with Kansas City coming off the pyramid, a bunch of teams have to move up. And there are two of those teams that had to move up to replace, or sorry, I should say there were three teams that had to move up to replace the three spots that Kansas City dropped. One of those was Indianapolis, but the other one was San Francisco. And San Francisco is in line for the 1 seed, like I was saying earlier. They need Seattle to win this Thursday against the Rams. And if San Francisco wins out, they are the 1 seed. So everything is in line for San Francisco to be the number 1 overall seed in a year that you thought would be toast. Brock Purdy is playing fine. I think the biggest story here is Christian McCaffrey has found out how to, move and use his powers for the good of his own team now. It used to be, and it has been this season, McCaffrey is sacrificing players on his own team so that he can continue to remain healthy. He has now switched it to he is sacrificing his direct competition. The Kansas City Chiefs, the only team that kept him from winning the Super Bowl. He takes out Mahomes this weekend. The biggest threat, the NFC, he takes out Micah Parsons. Who's next? I would start to worry about maybe JSN. Devontae Adams is another person he potentially sacrificed this weekend as well. I'd worry about those NFC teams. We need to see who CMC is sacrificing as the days go forward. He sacrifices Daniel Jones, 2 weeks ago so that he gets to play Phillip Rivers this week. CMC is becoming really, really dangerous. And I think it needs to be studied, just like Mississippi State sports need to be studied in terms of science, where if one team wins, the other team cannot win on the same day, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It feels that way with CMC right now, and the players and people that he's sacrificing just to stay healthy himself.
We could possibly get our shamans on that and see if they can give us a prediction on who's next, if there's any way we can protect some of these players against whatever voodoo CMC's conjuring up. We may have to look into that.
I'm fine with that. The rest of these teams, I think there's maybe arguments to move some of them up or move some of them down, but as we move to Tier 4, and you go ahead and put that up, I struggle with who to move down with them, and that is Chicago, Houston. I have Philly moving down to Tier 4, and then I had Baltimore moving up a tier and replacing Kansas City with their impressive defensive performance this weekend, and they've got the huge test with New England on Sunday night. I'm really hard-pressed to move one of these four teams down because I think maybe you could make an argument for Jacksonville with the way they're playing, the Chargers with the way that they're playing. I think you could even make the argument with San Francisco or Detroit. But really, with the way Baltimore has been playing defensively, I think they have earned the right to be here on Tier 4, just like Kansas City. Even though that their record wasn't showing it week after week because they had Mahomes and Andy Reid and Chris Jones and their defense and their pedigree, they earned the right to be on tier 4, even though none of us thought they were really that good. Baltimore, I don't think, is much different here. Philly moves down, and they moved down even though that they blew out Las Vegas, but they moved down in large part because I think a team above them outperformed them this week. And it even, which is crazy to say, blowing out a team 31-0, you still were outperformed by someone else.
Yeah.
But they were, and that we moved to tier 3, and this was spoiled earlier in the show. But Denver is a tier 3 team now at this point. They're completely off the fraud watch. Bo Nix has had enough good offensive performances, I think, to outweigh the really bad offensive performances. Their defense is really high level, and they had an off 2 quarters, and then they turned it around and were able to force 2 interceptions out of Jordan Love, which tied his his season high in terms of interceptions this year. Denver's a really dangerous team, and they have earned the right finally, in my eyes, to be a tier 3 team. New England moves down in large part of the team above them beating them this weekend and re-solidifying themselves. But New England very well could maybe move back up next week because there's some big games, especially with the teams really high on this pyramid this weekend, with Los Angeles playing Seattle and Baltimore's playing New England. We got some really big games for these pyramid teams as we get really close to the playoffs. I think the biggest argument for these tier 3 teams, though, is not the 2 teams that move down and up. It is the Green Bay Packers. And I think it would be very easy to say they should move down.
Sure.
Why is Philly not above them when Philly went into their house and beat them? I think that's the easiest argument out of those tier 4 teams. For me, I think even with the loss of Micah Parsons, they were a team I had a ton of trust coming into the season. I think Jordan Love has been playing really, really good ball. He just had 2 bad quarters, I should say, against Denver, but he was really good for the first 2. And with the way he's playing offensively, I think the sky is really the limit for them. I don't think they'll lose. They're going to lose a ton with Micah, but I don't think they're going to lose enough to move them down a tier. And I still, look, I picked the Raiders to go to the postseason. And, Sanders might end up being correct with them in terms of going 2-15, which would maybe Jack could use even a blind squirrel finds a nut. But
I love that phrase, man.
I don't know if you can call me a blind
he's
squirrel.
having a lot of correct predictions this year.
Maybe he's just visually impaired.
Yeah, I'm about to say,
so there's some good predictions.
if the saying is a blind nut finds a squirrel once in a while, and you just said I'm having a lot of correct predictions.
Every nut is blind.
What?
You said if a blind nut finds a squirrel. Every nut's blind.
If a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, but I'm having a lot of correct predictions, then it's not every once in a while.
Name 2 correct predictions. 3, 2, 1. See, I didn't hear any.
I'm right on the Raiders. I'm right on the Broncos.
Buzzer went off.
I'm right
Buzzer
on
went
the
off.
Chiefs.
Buzzer went off.
So far,
buzzer went off. Buzzer went off.
Now, have I been wrong about the
Colts?
Colts?
You had the Chiefs winning the division. You had the Chiefs winning the division.
No.
You had the Chiefs winning the division.
Got a TikTok saying otherwise.
You had the Chiefs winning the division.
Jerry Jones screwed me. Jerry Jones screwed me.
Sure. Blame Jerry Jones.
I have a TikTok saying otherwise that I will be reposting once the Broncos win the division.
And then I'll repost a screenshot of you having the Chiefs winning the division and the official predictions.
No, I already took that video down.
Unlucky. I'll go find it.
JP, continue talking about your pyramid after that brief sidebar.
I think, like I was saying, the biggest argument is maybe Green Bay. But I'm not gonna move off of them because I think Jack made the best point in terms of defending my argument here and earlier, and that is you went on the road, you played a team that had won 10 games in a row, a team that has won 10 plus games at home in a row, and is the number 1 seed in the AFC and has one of the best defenses in football, and you had chances still in that game to go win it. And so I think the fact that they still had the chances in that game when they didn't have the defensive performance they wanted is still a testament to the ability of this team going forward. And they very well could prove me right this weekend when they go to Chicago and own the Chicago Bears once again, which I'm all for, and I'd love to see it. But moving to tier 2, Buffalo replaces New England with their victory over New England this weekend. What an impressive performance. 5 touchdowns in a row. Turning it around. 21-0. Didn't matter. I talked about it earlier a ton. Inevitability. They're going to be this year's Thanos in the AFC, in that you are not done with them until the clock hits zeros. You need to have more points than them when the clock hits zeros, because otherwise, if you give them a chance, they're going to go out there and put together enough drives to score enough points. And their only weakness, their Achilles heel, is Josh Allen turnovers. If they avoid that, they are the best team in football, and they will and can beat every team in the NFL. So no reason for them to not be here at tier 2. With that being said, we've seen 4 games of them having 2+ turnovers, so they don't deserve to be on top of the pyramid, even with their 2 impressive performances in back-to-back weeks. They still have to stack games. That being said, though, like I said 5 minutes ago, big games between the teams up here on top of the pyramid. This could very well change next week. Seattle stays where they're at. Another, they're stacking performances of they're not getting their best from Sam Darnold and that offense, and yet with their defense playing well enough, they are still winning games. And even in the games that they've lost, you think of their game in LA, Sam Darnold had one of his worst performances probably ever as a pro.
That's saying a
Not
lot
his
too.
worst. And yeah, that is saying a lot. And they yet still had a chance to kick a game-winning field goal against a team I have on top of the pyramid for another week. And their other 2 losses, the Buccaneers at home in a game in which Seattle has the ball last and they're driving, but Sam Darnold hits the ball off of his lineman's helmet and it ends up being picked. Unlucky. And then the first week of the season, the 49ers, Sam Darnold, Nick Bosa pushes Sam Darnold's right tackle into his hand, and Sam Darnold fumbles the football. Those are their 3 losses. Like, I don't care that they're not having tremendous offensive performances, and it looks like, like 2 weeks ago, oh no, are they about to lose to the Falcons? And then they turn it around the second half. And then this week, they're going to really lose to 44-year-old Phillip Rivers. They do enough, and they win the game, and I don't think they're getting their high-end Sam Darnold performances. So that actually, in my eyes, might be a hey, look out. It could get a little scary because maybe we haven't seen an elite Sam Darnold performance for about 2 months now. All that being said, I don't know how much you expected the postseason, but for these next 3 weeks and 3 critical games for them getting to the 1 seed, starting on Thursday with the Rams and then ending with the 49ers, and then there's a game at Carolina sandwiched between those 2. I think you're going to see probably 2 elite offensive performances still from Seattle to come, and they very well could be back on top of the pyramid. But without further ado, the team once again on top of the pyramid is Los Angeles. They're the best team in the NFL. Davante Adams didn't have a single touch in this game, and they scored 41 points. They were not fazed whatsoever with losing one of their best weapons. They are the best team in the NFL, and we'll see if they can really lock up the division and the 1 seed if they're able to beat Seattle on Thursday.
Yeah. Great pyramid. I don't have any issues with it personally.
I have not an issue, more just a question. So the Chiefs are not on the pyramid, but they are also not in the graveyard. I was just looking, and I don't know if you put any thought into this. I believe every team who has been eliminated from the playoffs is in the graveyard except for the Chiefs. Is there what's keeping the Chiefs out of the graveyard but off the pyramid right now? What's the thought process there?
I want to see 1 week of Minshew and that team. I want to see if they're defeated or not. If they still play with some kind of fire, if they still play like they want to win games, turnaround culture wise. For 1, I need those performances for fantasy football, but for 2, when you lose your leader, they in these next 3 weeks, it very easily could get really kind of dark and gloomy in
Yeah.
that you lose Mahomes, and now all of a sudden you're gonna lose to the Titans and the Raiders, two of the worst teams in the NFL. That can't happen. I don't care if you don't have Mahomes or not. Like, teams, even when they lose their quarterback, are still competitive. And more often than not, if they are as good as the Kansas City Chiefs have been, they're not going to lose to the first and the second worst team in the NFL. I want to see that before I move them to the graveyard. If they lose to Tennessee, if they have a really piss poor performance, if it clearly looks like they have nothing to play for, then they'll be in the graveyard. But I wouldn't. I just want to see what their competitive mettle is, because that is something they've been given a ton of credit for, is their competitive mettle. They don't give up. They're in everything. Now that they're eliminated, it's a new feeling for this franchise.
Yeah.
I do want to point out something I saw on Twitter right before the show started. A Chiefs fan was trying to say that Travis Kelce is like the only person on the team that knows what it feels like to not be in the postseason. And there was like 15,000 likes on that. Another Chiefs fan retweeted it and said, "Holy Schubert," but not Schubert.
Sure.
And 16,000 people liked that. How dumb are Chiefs fans?
Yeah.
You have plenty of players who have missed the postseason.
They don't
On your
think
team.
they don't think like free agency acquisitions exist.
Well, even if you go back, I mean, Chris Jones has been on the team
True.
since like 2014, I think is when he was drafted. And that's just a name that comes to mind because he's a state guy, but he's missed the postseason because they didn't make it every year from 2014 to 2017 or 2018 when Mahomes started. They made it in 2017 with Alex Smith at quarterback. But I'm sure there are other guys on that roster too, and I don't know if you know the roster better than me, JP. You play a lot of Madden.
There's plenty of them. Juju Smith-Schuster.
Oh yeah. I mean, there are guys that
There's
missed the
many
playoffs.
free agency and trade pieces. I
Yeah.
don't know how many homegrown guys there are. Chris Jones is a good one.
He's the only one I know of, and maybe that's what the person who tweeted that meant. But that's a pretty ridiculous thing to say.
It's funny.
I might believe you there, but I don't know how much I believe that 36,000 or so fans believe that as well. But I say all that to say I want to see Kansas City show their competitive character this weekend in a meaningless game. In a team that's trying to tank in Tennessee. Like, if Tennessee goes out and gets that win, then it is very well they're off to the graveyard. And the playoff argument, like whether or not they've been in contention, like Miami wasn't eliminated for 5 weeks, and they had been in the graveyard for those 5 weeks. So
yeah, I
it's
wasn't
not necessarily a rule of thumb for my pyramid. But it's a fair point.
I wasn't saying it was like they're eliminated from the playoffs, to the graveyard they go. I was just curious what the thought process was with the Chiefs. Other question, and we don't have to keep talking about the Chiefs, but like for context of your thought process, where do you think the Chiefs would have landed had Mahomes not got hurt? Like, how much did that impact where you put them in the pyramid, or was this kind of I mean, they've been kind of not great all season. They've had an occasional good game, but I mean, they were 6, and I believe they had one more loss than they did wins. I'm not going to say how many that was, but they are now 6-8, if I'm not mistaken. And so, I mean, they were not a great team all season. The most recent team to be eliminated from the playoffs. But how much did the Mahomes injury kind of go into your thought process, and where do you think they would have landed had he not been injured?
It factored in a ton, because last week they were in the spot where Baltimore was. And I go back to earlier in the season when Baltimore lost Lamar Jackson. I didn't move them that first week, but then after that week, once I saw Cooper Rush play, I moved them all the way down to the bottom of the pyramid, and they were at tier 3 at that point. They moved all the way down to when the pyramid still had 7 tiers, tier 7. So it factors in a ton. I mean, missing a quarterback for the rest of the season factors in a ton, and that is why, like, if if you want to go off points wise, technically Kansas City dropped 6 points with Mahomes. Odds makers had it at 10, like we talked about earlier with the spread
Well, that they
difference.
account for vibes. You don't do kind
Yep.
of you don't believe in that kind of poppycock. You believe in the real analytics.
I
believe in analytics
what are
personally.
the best teams. Now, if Kansas City had not lost Mahomes, I still think even if Mahomes didn't get hurt in that play, they were going to lose that game to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And then I think it would have had I would have dropped them a tier. I think I would have moved Baltimore with their performance against Cincinnati into Kansas City spot, and then Kansas City would be where San Francisco is. And then you're looking at 5 teams on tier 7 or tier 6, I should say. So I think it would have dropped in 2 points rather than the full 6. But they still would have dropped had Mahomes played. I feel like almost even if they had won that game, maybe I'm still thinking about dropping them with the way that Baltimore had played this weekend.
I think it's fair.